Welcome, everyone. My name is Art Brown. For those of you that don't know me, I currently serve as the Dean of Information Technology here at MCC. I'm honored to welcome you and serve as moderator of today's Black History Month program. In 2024, the Black History Month theme for MCC this year is African Americans and Arts. For those of you that don't know, Black History Month is an annual celebration of the achievements by African Americans and a time for recognizing the central role of Blacks in U.S. history. Black History Month grew out of Negro History Week, the brainchild of noted historian Carter G. Woodson and other prominent African Americans. Since 1976, every U.S. president has officially designated the month of February as Black History Month. And just to give you a brief overview, again, the film we're going to see today is called River City Drumbeat. It's a powerful documentary tale of music, love, and legacy set in the American South. Specifically, Ed Nardie White, who's one of the key characters in the film, has devoted 3 decades to leading an African-American youth drum corps in Louisville, Kentucky. Albert, Albert, another key member of the cast, whose destiny was shaped by the drumline, must take up the mantle for the next generation in a world where systemic forces raise obstacles to fulfilling their dreams. Without further ado, we're going to jump in and start watching the film River City Drumbeat. And again, we will regroup approximately around 3:30-ish, give or take, and we'll continue with questions. And the film's author, Mr. Marlon, will join us at that time. So without further ado, we will start the film. We are honored to have with us today both the producer and director, Mr. Marlon Johnson, of the film that we just saw. We're going to have Jeffrey formally introduce Mr. Williams or Mr. Johnson. And then at the conclusion of that introduction, we're going to open up the floor to Mr. Johnson to give us a commentary of the film and then open the floor for questions for everyone. So with no further ado, Jeffrey, if you wouldn't mind, please formally introducing Mr. Johnson.
Absolutely. Mr. Marlon Johnson is a 10-time Emmy award-winning producer and director. He has worked on award-winning documentary films exploring music and cultural issues like Symphony in D, Emmy-winning Sunday's Best and Coconut Grove, A Sense of Place. The Ford Foundation commissioned Marlon to direct the documentary Breaking the Silence, which chronicled the rise of HIV infection in the Black American South. Marlon served as head of production and senior producer editor for Plum TV and helped create Tele-America Broadcasting Network. His documentary, Deep City, Birth of the Miami Sound, aired nationwide on PBS, the Public Broadcasting Service. Marlon has a Bachelor of Science in Communications from the University of Miami. Please welcome Mr. Marlon Johnson.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your schedules to share the film with me and with each other. So I'm really excited to be here. And thank you for inviting me once again.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Mr. Johnson. We're so honored to have you here with us today. If you could get us started, I just have a couple of opening questions for you.
Sure.
Sure. So if you could share with the audience, what was your underlying or overarching message that you wanted to give regarding the documentary River City Drumbeat?
Oh, that's a big, you start off with the heavy hitters first, huh?
I did, yeah.
You didn't ease into it. So I had a co-director with me, Ann Flatte, who was a wonderful co-director out of San Francisco. And I really didn't have a specific approach that I was looking for going into it. I'm somewhat of a seasoned documentary filmmaker at this point, mid-career, but the early version of me would have tried to really focus and have a preconceived notion of what I wanted to get out of the film in the very beginning. As I get older and as I get more comfortable in my art, what I'm most interested is allowing the film to come to me in a much more organic way. And so I was less interested in kind of how I would craft a film early on and more interested in observing and sitting in this space of what I'm experiencing in real time. That being said, what I really wanted to take away, what the audience to take away from this was a couple of things. But I think that this message of kind of the transformative power of the arts. I am born and raised in Miami, in a in a pretty similar neighborhood to the Weston and Louisville. A lot of challenges, a lot of beauty as well. But I would say that art was the one thing that made me reimagine the world. I was one of those kids that had always been told what you cannot do. And so when I found the arts and when I was in art school, it really helped me reshape and reimagine the world from what was to what could be. And so that was one of the things I wanted the audience to take away from this film, is that, you know, art really does allow you to free yourself from the current circumstances that you may find yourselves in, and also reframe what it is that Black boys and girls are able to do in these circumstances. I also think this idea of legacy and multi-generational excellence that can come out of these neighborhoods, that can come out of these villages, is something that doesn't often get, it isn't often reflected. And so we really wanted to lean into that quite heavily, and hopefully we were successful at doing so.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. So for yourself and the audience, we have roughly 15 minutes, give or take, for additional questions.
Okay.
I do have a few from the chat session.
Sure.
Before I jump to those, I just want to open it up. If anyone has any immediate thoughts for Mr. Johnson on his initial critique of the documentary, that would be great. And then if not, I'll kind of share some from the gallery. So, all right. So Mr. Johnson, I've got a couple for you here. So
Okay.
just to get this started. So at the beginning of the film, it was quoted that our art is going to be our savior. Have you seen this quote in reality during the development of this film or your work as a producer or director?
Have I seen it in reality? Absolutely. Again, it goes back to, you know, I've seen it in the kids that we filmed. I've seen the work that this particular institution puts in to really save these kids. You know, I like to tell the people that I work with all the time, you look around, we are the ones who are going to save ourselves. There's no one coming here to save us. And that's kind of a mantra that I live by. And I realized that the community that they've built is really, you know, this community of artists and this community of leaders and this community of mentors is really what is going to be the saving grace for a lot of these kids. And if they did not have these institutions, this foundation, the statistics are very specific on where they might eventually end up. And during the course of the film, you know, we filmed for years, and for a couple of years, and we would see kids come in and out of the institution. Kids would fall off and have to be saved, literally have to be pulled from, you know, really dicey circumstances and brought back into the program in a very specific way. And so yeah, we saw a lot of that, you know, for this program, the alternative, pretty dire.
Okay. All right, I'm going to shift gears a moment. I see, Gloria, you have your hand up if you want to pose.
Hi, Gloria.
Yeah, you can. There you go.
Just unmute. First of all, when I first got the email regarding this documentary, I saw Louisville, Kentucky, and that is my hometown.
Okay.
So I'm a transplant to Omaha, but I watched it and I was thinking, well, I wonder if, you know, I'll be able to recognize any places, but even better than that, Mr. Nardie White and his brother Briggy White were my church members. And you even showed my church, Portland Memorial Baptist Church, in the choir. So it was very nostalgic for me. I will admit some of the neighborhoods that I saw are a little different Then when I left, like a lot of inner cities are, but I loved the story. It was very inspirational. I loved the uplifting and the coming together of unity, and it takes a village, and trying to embrace the youth at a young age, and the support and encouragement through the arts, and what you built through the whole story was really good. And the characters, even the gentleman who was raised in a family and had come back to Louisville, and just the different characters getting into each person's lives. I really enjoyed it. And thanks for letting me walk down memory lane through your film. It was good. It makes me connect to home. So thank you for that.
Thank you. That means such a great deal to me. I will say that, I'm not from Louisville, so there was a lot of trepidation going into the film because I was not a native. But, what I did as a filmmaker was try and find a lot of the same connective tissue that I had in my experience growing up in a similar neighborhood in what Louisville had as well. And I also wanted to listen. I think as a good documentary filmmaker is a great listener. It's not all about going into a place and telling the people what's best for them, but rather the reverse, meaning as a visitor, really observing objectively what is being presented to you, and then trying to find some truth and telling their story and not the other way around. And so I hope that I measured up to those circumstances.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you both, Gloria. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Thank you for sharing.
All right. So let me see, Mr. Johnson, here's another question for you.
Great.
So from your initial dream or concept development to the first screening of the film, how much time would you share that you've invested in your creation of this project?
Oh, great question. Here's the thing about documentary filmmakers is that a lot of people don't know it's to do one well and to be pretty thorough at it, it takes years.
Mm-hmm.
Traditional fiction film, you could be done in 6 months, depending on the production schedule. But this is real people, real circumstances, real things unfolding. So, 2000 and late 2016 to basically being on the red carpet at the Miami Film Festival and South by Southwest in 2020, right before COVID, like right when COVID stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole process, so from 2016 until 2020, essentially. Okay. And that would include pre-production, kind of pre-interviews, going, scouting, then principal photography, and then all the post-production, all the editing that would happen, all of the back-end promotion and marketing was about a 4-year endeavor. And then after that, it really doesn't stop because we do things like this, mm-hmm. where we have screening platforms. And then the other thing is that as a documentary filmmaker, a lot of times you get attached to the folks that are in the film, and they become your friends. And so like Mr. White and Albert and Jalen, we all are still friends, especially during COVID when everyone was on Zoom and we were all supporting each other and the film had come out and the world was seeing it. We became more friends than we were filmmakers and subjects, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. And so that can last a lifetime. The first film I ever did, first feature film I ever did, Deep City, was 10 years ago next month. And I'm still friends with the folks. We talk maybe once a month. And so it's just really ongoing. So 4 years proper, but if you do a good enough job and you make those connections, it's a lifetime.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that.
So be prepared, anyone who's trying to be a filmmaker, a documentary filmmaker. It is a long haul, but it is definitely worth it.
Okay.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Let me see a couple more. I think we have time for a few more.
Excellent.
So from this experience, is there one significant piece of learning that you took away or acquired while working on the documentary? One thing that stands out more than anything else?
There's a couple of things. I guess I think it goes back to this idea of being patient and again allowing the material to come to you and not to force it, and also being okay with the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, filmmakers and filmmaking, there is so much planning that goes into it because it's so sporadic and it's so chaotic. But this film really taught me to lean into the unknown and be prepared to pivot and to go down paths I might not normally go down artistically, and be okay with that. Listening and observing and pivoting. I like to say, with a good documentary, it's not like classical music. It's more like jazz. It's more like improvisational jazz, in the sense when you're in a specific scene or you're in a specific moment, and being able to improvise. And that's a lot of times where the magic happens, is in those spaces of the unknown. That was one of my biggest takeaways.
Okay. So hopefully this is an interesting question, kind of want your perspective. So one of the quotes from the film was that kind of stood out with me, and I kind of want to hear your perspective, as sure as the audience would as well. So in one section, there was a quote that indicated Black men don't make money making art or anything in the art field. And so just curious, I'm sure as a member of the Black community, I hear this, and, as a person in the arts yourself, I'm sure you still hear this quote within the community.
Yes.
So what advice could you suggest to, myself as an educator and some of our colleagues on the call here this afternoon, as to how we can address that and encourage more youth in general, but Black youth, to consider a pathway in arts?
That is an interesting one for sure.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's a couple of different goals. I guess it just depends on what your priorities are. I think first, institutionally, and we talk about this in the film, and Mr. White addresses it. When I first met him, I hadn't heard anyone speak in these terms, but he gave everyone who wanted to be in the band, everyone who wanted to be a musician, who wanted to read, write music, play music, an ultimatum where you were doing sports or you were doing the band, but you weren't doing both, because playing football, they wouldn't want you to be doing band, and vice versa. And so he gave a lot of them, Jalen specifically, an ultimatum, like, you want to do football, or you want to do dance, or you want to do music. And so I think society has to place more emphasis, more importance on kids that look like us doing alternative things. It's so easy, the amount, and we talk about this in the film, but the amount of resources that are put into sports. I love sports. Just watching football, Super Bowl, don't get me wrong, not a knock on sports. But if we took half of the same amount of resources that we put into sports, whether it's the time that is spent, the practices, all of the money, all of the funding behind it, and we put it into the arts or the science, into these neighborhoods, who knows what we could glean from that? How many, how many Coltrane's, how many Einsteins, have we lost to this other pathway? And I don't want to get on my soapbox, but I think society needs to reevaluate their priorities, and that is cold, hard funding into these programs.
Yep.
And then as an individual, this part is a little more, a little less specific, in the sense that when you're an artist, you cannot help but be that. It is and Mr. White talks about it, it's like breathing. I just don't know what else to do. I tried sports at one point as a young person, and it felt so foreign. You know, I wasn't used to authority. I wasn't used to falling in line with a team, and you know, that just wasn't my makeup. But as soon as I got to art, and there were people who thought differently, and everyone was a little weird, and everyone was all over, I was like, oh, this is my tribe. This is my tribe. So if you are an artist and you are doing what you like, it won't ever feel like work. In the documentary world, you won't get rich off of it, mostly. But you'll be fulfilled in many, many other ways. You have to make it work for you.
Gotcha. All right. Excellent comments. Thank you. Thank you. So, Mr. Johnson, again, thank you so much for joining us today. Any final comments before we allow you to depart from us today?
No, I just want to say, you know, thank you guys for taking your time to experience this artwork with me. Every time someone watches a film or supports the film, it just reiterates the fact that what we do matters. And so anytime you get a chance to support the arts, I would highly recommend it in any form that it comes in, because you make the work that we do relevant. So thank you.
And thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
So again, we're honored to have you with us, and so appreciative of your time today.
Thank you so very much.
Everyone else, thank you for taking time out of your schedules to view this event. Definitely a appreciation to Mr. Johnson for taking his time to honor us with his presence. I will allow you all to depart. Just final comments to our MCC staff and faculty. Be sure to check your emails for the next upcoming Black History Month event. I believe the next one is tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. So those, you know, we appreciate your attendance. And again, thanks to everyone today. You guys have a great afternoon.
Thank you guys again.
Okay. Thank you all. Have a good one now.